Good morning and welcome to Early Exchange with Blessing Eche, Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruoje, and Idahosa Osamans.
Still a deficit budget, we're still going to borrow as much as up to 7-9 trillion.
We have a 24-hour rescue team always on standby. So the first thing that is done is for the...
As Nigerians, we must realize that government does not thrive based on what one man is doing at the seat of power.
If I had my way, I would say let's go back and bring back Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Yes, it's another beautiful day, another great opportunity for us to look at issues related to business, finance, global issue, and the economy. This is Early Exchange, and I am Femi Ayodele. As you know that Early Exchange is all about shaping policy and advancing development with our conversation. Today, we're going to look at the traveling expenses of the President of Kenya, which has been of concern to Kenyans. And we're also going to look at the issue of visa-free policy in Africa, how far Africa has gone when it comes to the issue of visa-free policy. These are more other things we'll be looking at today. Don't forget, it's your program. This implies that you can be part of this conversation. All you just have to do is to go on a social media platform, on a YouTube page, using the hashtag Early Exchange. Just search for @Souq News. There you find us. Like I always say, let your voice be heard. Blessing is here to also give you the best of programming. How are you today?
I'm well. Good morning.
Good morning.
When you say that, I like that. It means that it's going to be a very pleasant day.
Yeah.
And we hope that the discussions today will not just only be about the issues, but prefer solutions to Africa's challenges, and of course the world, and then to businesses as well. So it's all for your profiting today. We ask that you stay the rest of the show. As you know, our first point of call will be the news studio. So let's get over now and be updated on current happenings.
Good morning and welcome to the morning news update on Souq News. I am Juvi Ofiene. Despite the Naira reaching a record low of 1,348 Naira.63 per dollar yesterday due to strong demand on the official markets, there is optimism in the Central Bank of Nigeria's effort to address the forex backlog. Despite a 33.87% decline from Friday's close, marked at 891 Naira.90, and a release of an additional $500 million by the country's apex bank. This depreciation, the sixth breach of the 1,000 Naira per dollar threshold, has however raised concerns. Despite concerns about inflationary pressures and impact on the households and businesses, the commitment to settling forex backlogs and implementing reforms is expected to stabilize the exchange rate, boost investor confidence, and attract foreign investments. And away from that, Nigeria's newly completed refinery, Dangote Refinery, is expected to diversify crude oil sources, moving from domestic reserves to importing from the United States, according to a release by the company. A recent deal securing 2 million barrels of Midland for February delivery with Trafigura Group signifies a departure from traditional procurement methods. This move showcases Nigeria's adaptability to global oil market dynamics, particularly in response to the U.S. shale revolution, as the refinery aims for its full processing capacity of 650,000 barrels per day. This shift not only boosts Nigeria's energy security, but also disrupts established trade routes. And away from Nigeria to the UAE, where the UAE Sheikh Mansour bin Zayed Al Nahyan, Vice President, Deputy Prime Minister, Chairman of the Presidential Court, and Chairman of the Board of the Central Bank of the UAE, has initiated the inaugural cross-border payment for the UAE Central Bank's digital currency, digital dirham, directly with China. The transaction, which amounts to approximately $13.6 million, held at the Abu Dhabi National Exhibition Center, utilized mBridge, a platform that facilitates international fund transfers between participating banks through central bank digital currencies and blockchain. The event also coincided with the Emirates Apex Bank's 50th anniversary. About 1,056 citizens graduated from the ETHRA program, aiming to enhance Emirati representation in the financial sector. And moving on, Brent crude oil prices increased by 0.3 to $82 per barrel and trading value of 82.65 per barrel at West Texas Intermediate also saw a 0.4% rise to $77.09 per barrel. This followed a drop attributed to concerns over China's demand amid a real estate crisis and the liquidation order for China Evergrande Group. The market tension intensified due to worries about oil supply, sparked by a deadly drone attack in Jordan and escalating US-Iran tensions. Recent events, including a Red Sea tanker assault and the potential impact on Iran's oil export, contribute to the overall uncertainty. This rise in oil prices precedes an upcoming Federal Reserve rate decision, adding to market speculation. U.S. stockpile data is expected from the American Petroleum Institute and the Energy Information Administration later this week. And now, Amazon and robot vacuum maker iRobot have abandoned plans to merge due to opposition from EU and the US antitrust regulators. iRobot announced a significant restructuring plan, cutting about 31% of its workforce, and its founder, Colin Angle, stepping down as CEO. The EU antitrust chief cited concerns that the acquisition would allow Amazon to hinder iRobot rivals on the online marketplace. The Federal Trade Commission was reportedly set to reject Amazon's deal before the company withdrew. iRobot expects a 25% reduction in full year 2023 revenue, and Amazon will pay a $94 million termination fee. The abandoned merger reflects Amazon's challenges with competition regulators despite its recent successful deals. And with that, we'll come to the end of the morning news update on Souq News. I am Jovi Ofiene. Early exchange continues with Femi Ayodele and Blessing Eiche. Do have yourself a splendid morning.
All right, thank you, Juby, for the news update. Now it's time to start a major conversation, and we're going to start from Kenya, where President William Ruto has been accused of embarking on foreign trips other than necessary. Kenyans have had cause to complain in recent times about the foreign trips, even the local trips as well. According to reports, President William Ruto has embarked on 51, trips in the last 1 year to about 34 countries. What is the implication of this to the economy of Kenya? We have a in-house analyst with us. We're being joined by Dr. Idahosa Osamazi to look at this critical issue. Glad you have you join us on Early Exchange this morning.
Femi, good morning. My pleasure to be here.
Good morning,
Blessing.
All right. Our searchlight this morning starting from Kenya, not Nigeria. So interesting, right? Yeah. So we're looking at the traveling expenses of the president of Kenya, William Ruto, which has been of concern to the citizens. According to reports, between the last 1 year, the president has embarked on over 51 trips to about 34 countries. Let me give you a background to this. Says the president has embarked on an average of 3 monthly trips over the last 16 months. Yeah. You're smiling. How do you react to this?
I am smiling, and I think this is the malady of all African leaders, and not just President Ruto. We make promises to our people in terms of electionary campaign. We're going to air condition all the major roads and, bring build skyscrapers suspended on the air. And then after winning the elections, the challenge of delivery on this promise become a huge one. And that's why you see many times African leaders are always traveling. I wonder if they themselves ask themselves, how many times do European leaders travel? Those guys are solving their problems, and they are dealing with their issues. They are sitting down with their people, looking at how to make life better for the people. And if they must go out, it has to be on important occasion that is statutory. Here you are having African leaders who have to go to Europe from time to time with cap in hand, looking for money, and all in the name that we are looking for foreign direct investment to build Africa. I think this is one thing that we must have to discourage, because traveling will not solve the problem. If you look at the rating of Ruto since he took over in Kenya over a year ago, last year in September, some polls were done, and people are scoring him average in terms of performance. In one of the surveys, you see Kenyans said, oh, their lives are even worse off since he came. Now, this tells you the condition that is on the ground, that power is not an end in itself. Power is a means to an end. And you see, we spend huge energy struggling to get power. And now you get power, what to do with that power become a problem. And this is all across Africa. And the problem that is facing us are not problems that we need Europeans to solve. There are some of the problems that we really need to sit down at home and deal with. Kenya is still dealing with the issue of corruption, which of course also is highlighted in that survey. And so you travel and you fritter away state resources, have banquets everywhere and come back home, and then the life of the people is not better for it. And I don't think African leaders should be doing that. There are a whole lot of things that we can do, also putting dignity on our poverty. And I think many African leaders have not learned that.
But it has become customary that when a president assumes office, he makes trips, perhaps to show himself to other world leaders and to build a kind of relationship. Isn't that what... why
are you showing yourself to world leaders? You don't need to show yourself to world leaders. You are not ruling them, you are ruling your country. The task that is before every leader is to see how to chart a path for his people. I'm not saying that we cannot solicit for direct foreign investment. You see, we're living in an age of an information overload, that even the people that you are going to meet and sit down to talk with and give them all the rosy picture about what you look like, have access to the same information and data, and even more than you could have.
But the personal visits, personal interaction, pushing for bilateral relationships, don't you think that is what Ruto has been trying to do over the past 16 months?
It does not change anything. You see, investors are looking for havens where their capital can yield returns. And this is an economic decision. It's not a social decision that because a president comes to me and he asks me to bring money to your country, then I carry my money and go and sink in your country when the conditions in your country are not favorable to investment. So these are the issues. African leaders should first and foremost sit down, appraise the situation, and understand why people are not coming to do business with them, and create that enabling environment first and foremost. So that when you are talking to somebody to say, oh, we are ready for investment, this person is sure that if he brings in money here, that the money can multiply, which is the goal of every businessman. But here you have leaders who travel and keep moving around the globe thinking that nations just throw money away. No, I don't think that happens. You see, Oratory is not governance. Leaders should sit down, think of local solutions, because every problem has a solution within the locale. And I think that's what we must learn. Let's learn to feed ourselves. Let's create an ecosystem where our people can prosper. I cannot stop emphasizing the modern law of effectuation in entrepreneurial development that is being stressed at management schools. You see, use what you have to get what you want. Let's not keep wasting the money flying jets all around the globe, hoping that at the end of the day, somebody will come to your aid. You campaign that you want to govern your people. You didn't campaign that you have to help them to solicit help to come. So this whole overemphasis on foreign direct investment should stop. In my view, if you make a conducive environment for investment, people will come and invest. They will be the one approaching you. They will be coming to you to ask and say, oh, can we do business together? Then there's dignity. Now, when you don't have anything that you have to offer, then you keep begging and asking people to come to your aid, stressing and say, oh, we are ready. And people are getting more, they even have more information. They have those here on you than you have on yourself. So they can tell you what's happening in your country per second. So this is where African leaders really need to sit tight, to look at it that apart from just making political promises in terms of campaign, oh, you said you're going to cut down education size. I look at one report just now, and in 1 year, people have rated Ruto about 8% out of about 1,007 people that were interviewed. Vikapi says, oh, we have not seen that. So 73% people say, oh, we have not. So on the global rating, some people put him at 38%. And in terms of ministry performance, you see, the average is 55%. So this is to tell you the situation in Kenya as we speak. So I think that what Ruto needs to do is that beyond rhetorics, the challenge of governance is to see how we can leverage what is on the ground and convert this to wealth for the people. And I think that can be done within Kenya.
All right, let's go to this report, and I would like to read it to you. It says, the United States of America emerged as the most frequented destination. The most extensively traveled month was July 2023, where the president had to visit like 6 countries just within a month, July 2023. And there are explanations. Maybe this would justify the reasons for the trip. It says the trips were for summits, head of states conferences, official events, including Independence Day celebration. With these explanations, do you think it justifies the need for these conferences, these expenses, and then a form of this kind of travel that has been experienced in the last 1 year?
Yeah, some of the travels are justified. Particular of interest is the fact that there are statutory travel. You are a member and a signatory to bilateral and multilateral organizations. It is your responsibility that you participate in those meetings. I don't have issues with those participation. But you see, beyond having this participation, is to say, okay, somebody is doing. How many times did the United States President visited Africa in the last 3 years? Because he seems to be very busy with governance. So these are for me how to look at these issues. So if you have time to travel, it means that you are less busy.
Don't you think, for instance, his trip to United States, the fact that Kenya needs United States more than, the other way?
United States, no, I don't think so. I think we all need ourselves. Civilizations are built by men, not by angels. America was built by Americans. At least you have watched the movie, The Men Who Built America. They're not from Asia, they're not from Europe. They were American people. And if you look at the history of America, after the protests, Americans decided to undo UK, United Kingdom, in everything, including language speaking. They came from England to settle in that Newfoundland, and they had nothing to do with them. And they built their own civilization out of the scratch. And that's what they are enjoying. They are not traveling around the world to build. They sat down, they look at their problem, and they provide solution to it. And I think this is what Africans should do. You see, all this travel that they are moving around, we have seen that even in Nigeria some time ago, when you see president traveling and junketing the whole world, and at the end of the day it brings nothing. This will not solve the problem of Africa. What will solve the problem of Africa is the African leader sitting down to think outside of the box or without the box.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Let's even look at the case of Nigeria, for instance, where the president of Nigeria has made several trips trying to woo investors into Nigeria. And he's been acclaimed even here on the show as the #1 marketer of the country. Where did this culture spring from, that African leaders or presidents need to be the #1 marketers, so to speak, of their countries?
You see,
and is it possible to do without these trips, really, from the position that Africa is in?
You see, the Nigerian president case is different from Ruto's case. Almost all the cases that you see that the president has traveled was not really destined to say, okay, I'm going to go beg for somebody to give us money. They were all statutory meetings. And in all these statutory meetings, what the president tried to do was to make a case, a business case for investment in Nigeria, and that's what he has done. So whether it was a trip to the General Assembly in the United Kingdom, to the summit in India, to the COP28 in United Arab Emirates, or to the summit in Saudi Arabia, all these were business trips. And they were like statutory trips, that they have invitation to come for a trip, and then you need to do some certain things. And he uses the opportunity of those meetings, not just to look at the, how will I put it now? The luxury of traveling abroad or shaking hands with head of state, but he was busy. Actually, in some of the meetings, he was not even present at the meetings. He was more concerned with individuals who he feels that had money that could come to Nigeria to invest. And some of all those things actually yielded some results, and those investments are coming. You see, India brought in some money, and they're building some stuff in Port Harcourt, and you're having a whole lot of this investment coming because of this conversation. But what we're saying here in Ruto's case is the fact that in 16 months, you have over 50 visits outside of your country. And you can look at what costs associated with this. And somebody should be, that's the point. Some, like our president is on vacation. I don't see, we can't do vacation in Nigeria. Why must we go to Europe to do vacation? Macron doesn't come here to do vacation, so why should we be in Paris? And we're spending euro. Oh, that is Nigerian money. So these are not healthy for our economy. Africans must learn to live with what they have and leave the luxury of Europe and build a luxury in Africa that Europe will be attracted to.
Okay, in the case of Ruto, as the #1 citizen of the country, shouldn't he be the first person to be aware of the economic situation of the country and know that, oh, this will be the impact? So if he's making those trips, is it that, don't you think that Kenyans are quite in a bit hurry judging his trips? Perhaps there are things in the pipeline.
You see, there's no hurry in hunger. When people are hungry, they want to be fed. And that is the situation. People have no employment. They want employment. So people want an improved standard of living. That is what it's all about. And I say here on a daily basis, there are a few things Africa can do, and we can actually copy, and we don't need to travel. Some of these things we can watch on YouTube. We can even look at it from historical books of how people had evolved, and then go ahead and see how we can do some of all these things. Yeah, partnership in a long deal will not be of benefit to Africa. You know, this thing they talk about, I spoke here the other time and I talked about debt trap your nation. You see, when you have to mortgage your sovereignty and the future of your people, all in the name of getting facilities from developed country to develop yourself. So this is where African leaders are find themselves. So we're all borrowing because these people are not going to really put money in here. They cannot do business with you because they know that the condition precedent to investment is not here. So the maximum they can do for you is give you loan. So you go and waste it. And then they can come and take your resource in terms of repayment. What Africa need to do first and foremost is to create an enabling environment for businesses to thrive. And I don't think that requires a rocket science. So when you create that environment, even the people from the outside are coming. President of Rwanda traveled less because he has created the ecosystem for investment to come. So people want to go and see the wonder in Rwanda. And I think they should borrow a leaf from Kagame. Every time election is coming, there's always a protest in Rwanda that the president should remain. So this tells you how the people feel in terms of the efforts that is made by this man to solve their problem. This is where, for me, the issues lie. Foreign travels cannot bring investments.
All right. Let me point your attention to something in that report that should be of concern. According to the controller of budget, the domestic expenses, even the domestic trips, the cost is even more than the foreign trips. Let me point your attention to the Executive Office of the President spent 1 billion shillings in domestic travel, which overshadows the 361 million spent on trips abroad. So it even means the cost of local travels, is quite higher than that of foreign trips. What does that suggest to you about the peculiarity of his travel and why Kenyans are reacting?
Well, you see, we can't put the value of that travel on the amount spent. Rather, the energy that could be converted to a lot of productive thinking around government, designing way forward. The research that I told you about Kenya that was published, it was online everywhere in September, shows that people feel that Kenya is on the wrong direction. So for me, sitting down at home, even if the trips are zero expenses, sitting down at home to articulate solution to your problem is far more important than the cost. That's my point. You see, when they call you to come and deliver lectures here and there because you have a problem and then these rhetorics. But the real issue of governance, which is at home, where Kenyans are living, and the president needs to identify with them. So this is just justification that, he's not spending so much money, therefore he can continue to travel. He's not governing a country outside of Kenya. The real place of government is in Kenya, so he should stay with the people. Think with his cabinet and see how to provide solutions to education crisis, to economic crisis, solving the hunger challenge in Kenya. What can we do extra? And this is where the brain power come to play. I don't know if you have read the book, The Startup Nation. Israel went to the desert to recreate an economy from nothing. So it shows that it is possible with good thinking. So I think this is what African leaders must do. That we have to rely, over-reliance on Europe, so to speak, to come and help us. I don't think that, because as we speak, every nation in the world is having their own peculiar problem. In short, as a matter of fact, people are looking for a way to solve their problem. If you go to Paris today, you will see the trouble. If you go to Greece today, you see trouble. Where are you going to go to in the world that you're actually seeing a nation that is having so much that they want to give you? It's not there. So what I believe is that where people see opportunity, they will go there, irrespective of what is that. So we must create those opportunities so that even as we are traveling, it becomes justifiable that the people we are talking to can see reason that at the end of this day, of this whole travel, they are bringing resources to come invest in your place. Now, you go to Ireland, a lot of companies, big companies in China, big companies in Europe, big companies in America, come to start business in the island and put their headquarters there. Why? Because it's a tax haven for them. Ireland don't need to travel. It's the businesses that are looking for them. So this is what Africans should do. Create that ecosystem that is investment friendly, and then people will bring money. Businessmen will bring money. They will come to shake hands. Take away corruption, which is the big elephant in the room in Africa. And then people will want to do business with you.
Okay, thank you very much for your thoughts on this issue. We do hope that African leaders will do what is best for African countries, and some of these monies could have been put into infrastructure development and other things that Africa, like Kenya, for instance, needs. We're going to a quick break. On the return, it'll be time to look at an issue concerning another African country. Stay tuned.
The National Theatre, Igomu, built during the military regime of Olusegun Obasanjo and finished in the time for the Second World Festival of Black Arts and Culture, Festac, in 1977. The theatre holds amazing treasures and memories. The artworks fill everyone with pride. The National Arts Theatre is visible from the motorway which connects Lagos Island and the mainland. The National Theatre is packed with the artworks of a legendary contemporary Nigerian artist, stained glass walls by Yusuf Grillo, sculptures and murals by Lamidi Fakeye, Erabo Emopai, and many others. It was put to full use for a month as one of the 4 venues of the Second World Black and African Festival of Arts and Culture, tagged Festac 77. The complex hosted 16,000 participants from 56 African countries and the diaspora in an unprecedented showcase of African music, fine art, literature, drama, dance, and religion. The National Art Theatre was built and designed by Techno Expert Stroll, a Bulgarian company mirroring the Palace of Culture and Sports in Varna, Bulgaria. Completed in 1976, the building is one of the largest and most beautiful of its kind on the African continent. It consists of a central hall with 5,000 seats, a collapsible stage that can be quickly rebuilt, a conference hall with 1,600 seats, 2 large exhibition halls, and 2 cinemas with 800 seats each. The theatre complex has a dressing room for artists, a garage, offices, coffee bars, and a buffet. It has indoor TV and radio systems, as well as booths with facilities for simultaneous translation of languages and hectares of lush green lawn around. The majestic structure sits in Igomu like a quiet mountain, mesmerizing visitors and passers-by. The National Theatre, Souq Enlightenment. Good morning and welcome to Early Exchange with Blessing Aiche, Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruoje, and Idahosa Osamas.
Still a deficit budget, we're still going to borrow as much as up to 7-9 trillion.
We have a 24-hour rescue team always on standby. So the first thing that is done is for the...
As Nigerians, we must realize that government does not thrive based on what one man is doing at the seat of power.
If I had my way, I would say let's
this-
go back and bring back Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Many thanks for staying tuned to Early Exchange. Now let's look at the latest attack in the Democratic Republic of Congo, where the UN has evacuated civilians after the last East Congo attack. The attack led by the Tutsi-led rebels, the M23, the clash between the Congolese army troop and the rebels. Now, this has led to the death of some persons and also displacement of a lot of people. We'll still have Idausa Osamanze in the studio, who is our analyst providing great thoughts on these issues, and as we look at the way forward for Congo in this time of trouble. Now, this latest attack is not the first time an attack like this is happening, but this is just like the latest. What's your thought on the way it is carried on and the recent attack?
Well, I think it is so unfortunate that for so many decades now, over 3 decades, Congo has been in this huge mess. And of course, what's the root and genesis? God has blessed them with so much resources. And then some people come from outside and say, we need your resources, and they are taking it, and they are setting them against each other, and they are destroying themselves. And some other countries are profiting. It's a shame on Africa. Huge one. That brothers are killing brothers to make another man who is supposed to be their enemy better off and richer than themselves. And this is the issue which we really need to deal with in Africa, which is the problem of sharing. The philosophy of sharing in Africa had to be revisited, where some people, because of their position, seek always to oppress others and deprive them of the thing that nature has given to them. I said here yesterday, injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. And this is the situation. That people who have, or God has given power, should be responsible in its use. I don't think the problem in Africa is beyond resolution. All that it requires is sincerity of heart. Just the observance of the golden rule. Do to others what you will want them to do to yourself. And after colonization, it's like the brain of most leaders in Africa has been taken away. And the ability to sit down and think about their problem, to look at their situations and find solution to it, is what we are finding here. So like I said yesterday, I think we need, as Africans, to begin to evolve and learn how to relate one with another and see how we can do things fairly, promote equity, promote justice, promote fairness in the continent. And this way, all these troubles can end.
Looking at what is happening in Congo, it's also peculiar to other African countries. You can see similarities, you know, the offspring of rebel, you know, terrorist group and all that. What does that suggest to you about governance and style of leadership in Africa? You expect that a country like Congo that's gained independence since 1960 The crisis has also started since then, and now they are still battling with these issues. What does it suggest about the issue of governance and also leadership in Africa?
Well, like some people have argued in time past, maybe Africa didn't learn enough from their erstwhile colonial masters, and when, of course, we were struggling for independence, what was at our heart was not really the liberation of the common people on the street, but rather stepping into the GRAs where the colonial masters were living and enjoying all the benefits that were accruing to the colonial master. And I think this is the problem. So if what was driving you was to see that, look, one power change hand, as they say in the religious circle, and the power has changed and now is your power, now you're using it, you're also abusing it. And there are also people who are also saying that you're also abusing power, and they are failing to liberate themselves from abuse. So I think this is the real issue. It was greed, envy, that was at the heart of our struggle for independence. We were struggling to get power, and we didn't really know what to do with power. And that's the problem that has afflicted Africa for this long. And it's not just Congo, it's almost everywhere in Africa. When you go out in the academic circle and we keep talking about how the cleavages that are led by the erstwhile colonial master is still ravaging us, that they tied us to their apron string, and after 50 years, we cannot lose ourselves from those apron string and we are still gum to it. It just shows that we are not thinking people. Now, when you look at the history of colonialism and see how long it took for the white people to do what they did with us, and now we have been free for this long, and we cannot even sit down to look at our issues and see how to resolve it, then there's a problem. Europe used to be like Africa. Of course, there were all inter-communal crises and conflict everywhere. They were fighting themselves. And then they came to a reason congregation and said, look, why should we be killing ourselves? And they resolved their issue. Today, development is up in Europe. Why can't Africa learn from other people's history? This is the real issue. So you are seeing is a fact that, like people said, oh, they gave us education. And of course, they didn't give us ability to think. And there's no critical thinking. Among us, we sit down and we're just living stupidly. So to use that word, see, that is where we live. And all we are thinking is that there's one white man somewhere who is coming to liberate us. You see, we must get to that point to ask ourselves, what do we need power for? Professor Claude Ake of blessed memory spoke about this, how Africa, politics underdeveloped Africa, the struggle for power, we so prioritize it. Election is war in Africa. It's not because we are struggling over ideas. We are not struggling over ideas. We are not thinking about models of leadership or governance. The crude struggle is just state capture. Because if you capture the state, you capture everything. And so when you have the privilege of being in government, you become the richest person in town. And this is what is afflicting us. It's not leadership style. Because we don't even have, we have not been able to even raise leaders who can think of models of how to govern people. You are looking at people who are using force. You know, Thomas Hobbes calls it the state of nature, where people are using brute force. What they call the selection of species. You're killing other people who are weaker than you so that you can take advantage of things that they are having. See, this is the problem we have in Africa. So leadership here is not even a question because we have not raised a crop of leaders. We are looking out for people who will one day wake up in Africa and begin to think about leadership. What's leadership? Leadership is pathfinding. It's creating, you know, a system where you are in the front and other people are following you willingly, without coercion. So, but we have not seen that in Africa. That's why we are killing opposition. We're doing everything to make sure that the opposition does survive, because all that we care about is that you just grab the power. and run with it.
But what is the role of the West in this crisis in Congo and some parts of Africa? The rebel group, for instance, yesterday when we were talking about the Red Sea attack. So who are those funding them, supplying them with weapons that they are now a threat to the entire country? And you mentioned earlier that in Africa, brothers are killing brothers to satisfy those who are supposed to be, of the Western power. What is their role in this? Why is it hard for African countries to see this?
That is what is the mystery. That we cannot see that people are benefiting. Now, when you see a bullet shot in Africa, check it. Is it that made in America or made in Russia? It's clear. And this bullet don't come to you for free. They are selling this weapon and say, take, kill your brother. You buy from this one, this person buy from this one. And you are killing yourself. So that's why I call it stupidity. Nothing more. Really, because we can't blame the West. And we cannot continue to blame them. They see a market in you and they are exploiting and taking advantage of the market, the foolishness and the stupidity of the people. And that's what they are exploiting. We just need to wake up and wise up somehow, so that we can understand that, look, we don't need to kill ourselves. If it's about resources, what are the equitable way we can distribute these resources within ourselves and understand that somebody is profiting from this illegality and the rest of us are suffering. And this is the problem in Africa, the greed in the African man. That's the problem. That a man can take a bribe to mortgage the life of everybody in his community. That is the heartlessness that is in Africa. And it will only take God to pass through the heart of African people so that we can drop greed and begin to have value for life. This is what it is. You can't go and send weapons to Europe to kill themselves. They will not kill themselves. So why are we killing ourselves? And I just see it as common stupidity in most of African states.
Let's look at the activities of this rebel group. You observe that they are becoming more emboldened, just like every other rebel groups in Africa. What do you think is fueling this kind of courage to even hold the state to ransom?
Well, the courage is that they are relying on the Western power. You know, there's a proverb they say in my village, if a fowl has a very strong man standing behind it, it can use his beak to kill a cow. That's what you're saying. See, the people who are selling arms to you, they are the ones training them on the use of these things. They come to the Sahel region to train some people in Africa here to create trouble for Africa. This is the issue. And we can't forget in a hurry the history of Osama bin Laden. How the Americans used him to destabilize the system before he became a thorn in the flesh of America itself. And this is the story around rebellion and terrorism all across the globe, because the Western powers are the ones that are actually using this thing to drive their interests, their own interests. So we don't need to be blaming them. It's only we who have refused to be wise that is the issue. So once we can get sense and learn wisdom, this will stop.
So what is the sense here to learn, the wisdom to curtail this crisis?
It's simple. All of us are made in the nature of God. And if we should value God, we should value ourselves. That what is good for the goose is good for the ganja. Let me create one scenario from our environment. When Nigeria used to feed on cocoa, feed on granite, pyramid, and the rest of it, How were resources shared? Regions were in charge of their resources. Now, when wealth shifted to the oil, what happened? The money is moved to the center. This is a problem. And you come to our region and check, for example, who are the owner of the oil wells in the Niger Delta? From people from the other ethnic groups. This is the injustice that you see in Africa. They want to take what belongs to me, and if I cannot take it legally, I have to look for a means to get it by all means. This is the issue. We kill the goose that is laying the golden egg. If development is spread and people arrange their politics such a way that there's no rancor around it, then there'll be peace. I mentioned Canada yesterday, their constitutional form of democracy. You see, if you are from the agrarian part of Canada, they can't send somebody from the commercial side to come and be the Minister of Agriculture. No. If you are the commercial center, the Minister of Finance had to come from that place. This has been arranged in their constitution. And so people follow these things and there's no trouble. There is French-speaking Canada, there is English-speaking Canada. The arrangement has so been done that you can't hear conflict around them. Because they are thinking like humans. And this is what is missing in Africa. And I say it, in game theory, they call it the zero-sum game, where the winner takes all. This is how we approach politics. This is how we approach power. So we need to be able to look at the other person and see that it's also human, that what is good for me is also good for him. If I need a good life, he also needs a good life. This is just simple. And when we can address this justice issue, then of course tensions will reduce in Africa, conflict will go down, and we will not need to be carrying guns to kill ourselves.
I'm wondering if looking at the crisis in Africa, maybe part of the underlying issues could be the issue of poverty, lack of education or illiteracy. Often we say an angry man, our hungry person, it's an angry person. So I'm looking at the correlation between this crisis and poverty, lack of education or illiteracy, if there's a link there.
Well, I think the problem in Africa is not the problem of poverty. It's far more than poverty. I used to think that poverty was a problem because I was an ardent believer of the Karl Marx school, that when men are deprived, of course what happens next is that they go violent and take to arms to protect. But you also see that we have gotten to a situation to also look at the real life scenarios and situation. That is not everybody who is deprived who takes to arm. In short, you see people who hate poverty so well and they are doing everything within their power and they are rich to undo poverty. That's for me is what it is. Now I spoke to the issue of greed in us, which is the problem. You know, greed comes with some form of envy. That if I have what you don't have, and you are looking for a means to take that you believe is that you should have a kind of a sense of entitlement. I think that's a bigger problem more in Africa. I've seen people, I was, the first time I was in the UAE, I met an Indian. And I was so shocked that in the hotel where I was staying, every time, this man was all around me. Oh, Master, have you taken coffee? Master, do you want tea? Oh, master, your fruit. All these things. So I was so worried. So I was tempted to ask this Indian, and I said, look, guy, you must be paid very well because the effort you put into this job is top notch. Oh, he said, no, really, not so well. And I said, how much do you earn in a month? He said, oh, it's about $100. And that was in 2008 or so, 2009. $100, that's all you earn? He said, yes, sir, that's all I earn. And I said, so how do you live? He said, that's why I do my work well. So if I serve people well, when they are leaving, they give me tip. And at the end of the month, I earn more than $2,000. So my eyes opened that the problem was not poverty. It's just the quality of thinking. That people think that you can do something excellent and then get premium. So it is opening our heart to understanding that, look, there are some certain things that cannot be handed over to us. Yes, education has played a very terrible role because of the bad education we have, that people can't even think through some processes. And that we saw that happen in the last election, where people were about killing themselves. Whether you are going to be here or there or there. And I asked them, very simple question. You should be intelligent to ask yourself, this man has been governor before. This man has been vice president before. This one has been governor before. What did they do with their power? What has changed between the time they rule and now? That you just suddenly wake up and say, oh, if this man doesn't do it, nobody else can do it. What's the antecedent? Because what did you do yesterday, you can't do today. So we have a crop of people who are very mentally lazy and they can't think. This is, for me, the real issue. So once you can address the issue, some people have native intelligence to be able to ask some basic questions. If this man says, oh, I'm going to build a skyscraper that is going to be suspended in the air, ask him, which one has he done before? We don't ask that question. So people come with us with all manners of narrative, and we just take it. I was sharing somewhere at that day, and I said to somebody, even when they told us that our former president was somebody from Sudan, even in church they were preaching it. So it shows the level of our inability to think critically as a people. And I think this is a big problem in Africa. Because if we can think about our problem, then of course we can have solutions to them.
All right. Talking about thinking critically, the mineral deposits and the natural resources that Africa is blessed with, it's supposed to yield some, at least, good level of development. But it seems to be the cause of problem, cause of crisis in Africa. Is it as a result of the dependence on, most times, monoproduct for the economy, or the laziness of Africans not to think of other ways of making a living? Everybody wants to get from national cake.
Yeah, that is what I'm saying. That's why I call it the zero-sum game. The richest man that has ever lived was in Africa. Massa Kaka Musa. The richest man that has ever lived on earth is an African man in Mali. Now, how did the word of Musa translated into the life of every average person in Mali? This is a problem. And this is the challenge that we face. My cousin was calling from village that day that his land, his father's land in the village, that the king said is the owner of the whole land. And therefore, he just moved in, no any instructions, and say, it's my land, I take it. You can't do anything. Go to hell. This is how we live, and this is a problem. Where we don't have regard for the rights of other people. So it's not about monoproduct. It's just about our value system that is wrong. And if we cannot review that value system, it will be very difficult for Africa to get out of its trouble.
All right, thank you very much. That was Samanze. We do hope that Africa gets out of the trouble that it is in. Natural resources are supposed to be for the good of the continent.
Supposed to be a blessing to us, but now it has turned into a curse.
We do hope that curse is broken. The leaders, African leaders, get to do the needful and peace be restored to every part of the continent. Let's go to a quick break, and it's be time for us to look again at Africa. Today happens to be all about Africa, but this time around, a different issue. Stay tuned.
My name is Olatunji Shoti Miri. I'm a performing artist and, television radio presenter and a university lecturer, Unilag. Keep watching Souq News.
Hello everyone, my name is Kenny Black, Africa's finest music comedian, and you're watching Souq News. If you're not watching Souq News, I pity you, but keep watching Souq News.
Hello everyone, my name is Timida Kolo, and you're watching Souq News. Stay tuned.
Hi, my name is Wisdom Oluwaseun Okoko, co-founder Orbit Africa Properties. I'm live at Souq News. Guys, keep watching Souq News for everything that concerns business, economy, politics, news. Souq News is your station.
Tafawa Balewa Square, TBS. Tafawa Balewa Square was initially used as a horsing ground called Lagos Race Course. The edifice was constructed by General Yakubu Gowon in 1972 and named after Nigeria's first Prime Minister, Sir Tafawa Balewa. Tafawa Balewa Square is located at 45/57 Marse Bangboshe Street on Lagos Island, Lagos, and referred to as TBS. TBS is a 50,000-seater capacity venue and houses the Remembrance Arcade, the 26-story Independence House, which at a time was the country's tallest building. When Lagos served as the country's seat of government, the National Assembly Complex was within the TBS. Also in the square are the National Broadcasting Commission Office, the Nigerian Hydrological Services Agency Office, shopping centers, travel agencies, restaurants, car parking lots, and a bus terminal. Tafawa Balewa Square is adorned with beautiful statues of white horses and red eagles, symbols of strength and dignity. Our historic neighbors include the King's College and the Holy Cross Cathedral. Tafawa Balewa Square hosted some of the country's memorable events, such as the Independence Day in 1960, when Nigeria gained independence from Britain, the Armed Forces Remembrance Day, which is celebrated annually on January 15. The edifice is a national cultural asset. Tafawa Balewa Square, Souq Enlightenment.
My name is Olatunji Shoti Miri. I'm a performing artist and, television radio presenter and a university lecturer, Unilag. Keep watching Souq News.
Hello everyone, my name is Kenny Black, Africa's finest music comedian, and you're watching Souq News. If you're not watching Souq News, I pity you, but keep watching Souq News.
Hello everyone, my name is Timida Kolo, and you're watching Souq News. Stay tuned.
Hi, my name is Wisdom Oluwaseun Okoko, co-founder Orbit Africa Properties. I'm live at Souq News. Guys, keep watching Souq News for everything that concerns business, economy, politics, news. Souq News is your station.
Good morning and welcome to Early Exchange with Blessing Aiche, Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruwoje, and Idahosa Osamans.
Still a deficit budget, we're still going to borrow as much as up to 7-9 trillion.
We have a 24-hour rescue team always on standby. So the first thing that is done is for the...
As Nigerians, we must realize that government does not thrive based on what one man is doing at the seat of power.
If I had my way, I would say let's go back and bring back Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Yes, indeed, we are shaping policy and advancing development by looking at the trends in Africa. We talked about the crisis happening in Congo, and now we want to look at the visa-free policy in Africa, which has been on the table. A lot of Africans are talking about it in recent times. What will be the economic implication for Africa if it becomes a visa-free zone? To help us shed light on this, we have been joined by a special guest. We have Ambassador William Wallace, who is the Consul General of Antigua and Barbuda to the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Glad to have you join us, Ambassador Wallace.
Glad to have you as well, Femi. It's always a pleasure to meet and talk with you and discuss trends with Souq News. And I think we are moving towards the right direction in Africa.
Thank you so much for that compliment. If that is coming from you, that's quite commendable. Thank you so much. Now, let's look at this conversation around Africa becoming a visa-free zones, even for the other African countries. This conversation has been going on for years. Give us a background to what will be the impact of this and what will be the starting point. The latest country to give a nod to this is Ghana, who is also planning to ensure that this policy is being implemented this year. But why is it necessary for Africa to pursue this issue of visa-free policy with all sense of seriousness?
Well, there are two what I would call coordinating points. One, if we look at the Africa Union, and if we look at African continental free trade, you can't have a united continent and then want to trade and not have visa-free access to allow trade to happen and to be successful. Secondly, you have to also look at the diaspora. We have in the African diaspora millions of our brothers and sisters, the Caribbean, North and South America, who want to come home, they want to do business, and you're having a block that stops them because they have to go through the whole process like Africans have to when they're going to the US or Europe and wait to be told when you're going to have a visa, if you're going to have a visa to come and meet with your brothers and sisters and trade and do business. It's not correct. So this is the step in a very right direction. Now, Ghana, as an example, did one very successful thing. I think it was 2 years ago, Operation Joseph. Operation Joseph allowed Africans in diaspora to come home visa-free and reunite with the continent. So Ghana has set an example, and it should be continued. I think maybe because they did that and saw the economic benefit. The economic benefit when they did that, I think ran into almost $1 billion in tourism. Now just think about the whole of Africa having intra-Africa trade under the African Continental Free Trade, and then having the diaspora come from the rest of the world home to Africa. The inward foreign direct investment, I'll call it African direct investment, because Africans spend a lot of money in the United States, in the UK, bring that money home. That shows us that we are now coming to the point where we are uniting with our money, with our strength, with our skills, and that's very important. So Ghana and all other African countries should do that very quickly. But we should also, like everyone else does to us, make it, mandatory for those that want to come into the continent now, not have the same free access. Yes, you give them access, but, it should be limited. But for our African brothers and sisters, it should be unlimited. As a matter of fact, they have a right to have a passport in any country, or rather nation state in Africa that they want to go to.
All right, good morning, Ambassador Wallace. Good to see you again.
Good to see you. I'm having my Kenyan cup of tea. And of course, I've been enjoying Kenyan tea and coffee. So that's part of our Africanness.
Okay. Is it enough to just make it visa-free or make entry into African countries visa-free? What about the trade tariffs, the trouble with doing trade? Shouldn't that also go side by side with the visa-free entry that Ghana and some other African countries are looking to implement?
You're absolutely correct. If we have to trade, then we must remove tariffs, because we are now seeing ourselves as the African Union as one continent. So tariffs should be removed for ease of trade and for ease of doing business. You know, in the last interview, we talked about ease of doing business in Africa, and that should be one of the very key points. We should remove tariffs and at the same time ensure that we are visa-free to travel, both air, road, and train. Those are the infrastructures that we should be thinking about. We should be thinking of how easy it is in the United States. You will move goods from Houston to Atlanta to New York, you know, and trade is booming within, because America has a captive market. We Africans also have a very captive market. The whole of Africa, we are talking about 1 billion people. Could you imagine moving goods and services within the continent, just within the continent, among ourselves, how rich we as Africans would become? It is the answer to a lot of our problems that we are facing at the moment. Instead of thinking, do we look to manufacture for export? No, let's manufacture to trade within ourselves. Don't forget, before colonials came, we had Ubuntu, and we had our own means of trading among ourselves and bartering. So you're quite correct. We must remove that tariff that will stop the trade and ease of doing business within the African continent, because others are seeing it, and they're coming and they're setting up, whether they have started already in South Africa, in Rwanda, in Nigeria, in Kenya. Others are becoming local companies to use their own products and services to take advantage of the continent's captive market. And we got to take advantage of that for ourselves.
All right. The issue of visa-free policy has been grabbing news headlines in recent times. In fact, the hashtag visa-free Africa has been trending. But aren't you worried about the security concerns? What are some of the challenges associated with this issue of visa-free policy?
Right, there are going to be obviously security problems. Like any other country or any other continent, you have to put in place security measures. One of the good things that we have now is that the technology now for ensuring that you can monitor and predict, you know, security concerns is in place. It's a matter of implementing. It's a matter of getting the technology and putting it in place. So, for example, you want to track individuals. There are technology to track individuals. You want to track goods. You know, you have points where your goods are coming in to a particular location. You have a station that is there to examine an X-ray, just like you do currently in customs area. You have areas where it is already secure for offloading, unloading of goods and services, and you have technology also available, even AI technology, to track individuals. So if individuals are on a system, you must have your ID, you know, you must have at least some form of recognition, and there are recognition type technologies now that will help where that is concerned. Yes, Africa has been very porous as a continent, and I think building up a database of the ne'er-do-wells, those who are, you know, the ones that we need to look into their movements, I think it is a concern, and we should employ the technology to ensure that we can track, from a security point of view, individuals and goods within the continent. It can be done.
Okay, let's be optimistic, and at the same time, let's look at the possibility of doing this. Considering the pockets of security challenges in parts of Africa, do you think going visa-free for all African countries is something that Ghana, for instance, is ready for at the moment? There is the ECOWAS bloc and then the ECOWAS passport. Should it be tried first as a regional thing before being opened to all African countries?
I think there are two sides of this coin, very much two sides to this coin. We can do rollout, right, regionally. That way, we have started with one country, which is, let's say, Ghana. Then we roll it out into ECOWAS. Those are pilots. And then, after looking at some of the fallouts, some of the problem areas, some of the issues that have come up with the rollout, you are now, that's a learning curve for rolling out in other areas. I think from my point of view, I think let's take little steps, start with one country or two, do the region. So in West Africa, you have ECOWAS. You know, you probably do the same in East Africa. Probably start with Kenya and then roll out to Uganda, Rwanda, Tanzania. And then you move further down south. Where there are hotspots, you put in place what we will call in security ring fencing. You ring fence areas where you have concern and ensure that you can meet the security challenges before you allow them in the rollout plan. So I think the intelligence heads, the security organizations have enough experience and expertise to work on, you know, minimizing the security concerns with a rollout program. But the united and unity of purpose is essential.
All right, let's look at the role of the African Union here. For the past 30 years, the African Union has been making moves to ensure free movement within the continent. The issue of African Common Passport has also been on the table. What do you think should be the role of the African Union henceforth, or the starting point when it comes to the issue of having common African passport? The ambassador. Okay, I think you know, internet is playing a fast one on us, so peculiar anyway. So the issue of you know, visa-free policy has been in the pipeline for years. You know, you are there are about 55 countries where. Okay, great. Alan, our guest is back with us. Ambassador, if you can hear me, glad to know you're there. Glad to have you back with us.
Yes, the African Union and the passports. You know, the African Union has not been doing its job. You have 30 years to have, you know, tested the ground, tested the waters, you know, start a plan of action. And by now, the united continent would have had passports for everyone. And perhaps also a lot of the security concerns might have been minimized because people would have been moving. If you think about what happens in an area where securities are concerned, if people are moving, on the positive side, they are seeing opportunities. Most areas that have a problem with security is because they are not opportunities and people feel trapped. And that's why you see our brothers and sisters heading to the Mediterranean, going through the desert and getting themselves killed and murdered because they don't see any hope. They don't see any opportunity. And because of this, you know, they are willing to be desperate and leave their environment. But if within the continent they see opportunities and they can move freely, then that makes life a little bit easier from the point of view of security concerns. So on the downside, or rather on the upside, you can have a reduction in security concerns because people are free to move take advantage of opportunities. Then the African Union would have been able to strengthen that passport, and people around the world, like you respect the American passport or the British passport, will now respect the African passport. Why? Because we have a continent that's full of opportunities. And people will say, well, they are not leaving their continent to come and occupy space in our America or our United Kingdom. We want to go and engage with them in partnerships. So you'll find that the respect for Africans would be there rather than individual countries where, you know, they stop you from Nigeria, they stop you from Kenya, you are limited to the countries you can visit with your passport, and all of them, you know, are singled out. The African Union is supposed to have created, you know, a common passport that is strong for the continent. And 30 years, and they've done nothing. It's a leadership concern, a big leadership concern. Why haven't they done that till now?
As a follow-up to the visa-free entry that Africa is currently looking at, isn't it the right time now for a single currency for Africa?
I'm happy that you talk about that. I am actually working on that. It's called the Standard United Digital African Currency Contract, SUDAC. And I can send you some information on that. We have been working on this for the past 5 years. And for the past 5 years, we've been testing the algorithms. We've been testing the transaction space. And we are now, just at the moment that you're speaking about this, my team is waiting to commence and have discussions with PAPS, the payment system, with the African Continental Free Trade Area organization, and the concerned stakeholders. So by pure coincidence, I'm actually working on that, a single currency, but it's a single currency contract, because we are looking at piloting it with the African Continental Free Trade Area, because transactions are the most important. Our SUDAC has to do with being able to use the reserves, you know, the products of our continent as the base for having a standard currency contract. And there's no better place for that to take off than Africa, because every single African nation has enough resources to back a common currency or a common currency contract. And we are actually working on it. I'll share it with you.
All right, that sounds interesting. Let's use this opportunity to extract this exclusive from you as regards to that.
Yes. Yeah, I'm here.
I call exclusive from you now, since you are the pioneer and then you're part of the team working on this project. Give us an overview of what SUDA is all about. How far have you gone? And then how is it going to work if perhaps this is being accepted generally?
Well, part of it is intellectual property, but I can tell you the team. We have Dr. Mark Hewitt, who was very responsible for developing blockchain algorithms for IBM. We have Dr. Yinega Desi, who was a former governor of the Central Bank of Ethiopia. We have Dr. Mark Dako, who is an investment banker from Ghana. We have quite a team, you know, who are representing a Pan-African approach with financial dexterity, financial experience and expertise, and looking at the space. We also have an advisor from the African Development Bank, who is currently the president, Dr. Adma Souq. So we have put together the, what I will say, the movers and shakers in the financial space to understand what is required to ensure that you have a standard currency contract that can fulfill the needs of trading within the African Free Trade Area. And that's all I'll say so far on it, because it will be giving, away a lot of the intellectual property, which at this point in time, it will be remiss of me to reveal too much. But we have got to, I would say, the final stage.
Setbacks to the visa-free entry for all African countries, not just for Ghana, but as a continent. Recently, 3 countries pulled out from the ECOWAS, talking about Mali, Burkina Faso, and the Niger Republic. Do you see that as a setback?
No, because first and foremost, you got to understand, what are they doing? They are breaking away from French control, and that's very essential. And all other French African countries who have had that colonial setback, because they have had a setback in their development by colonial interference from France. They are now going through the throes of removal from that influence, and therefore they are going to sort themselves out. They are looking at new partners. They are looking at uniting together as 3 countries who are probably being excised or being excised from ECOWAS. So they have to go through their throes of removal. It's not a setback, because once they've formed themselves into a bloc, they are also a trading bloc. They are also part of the African Union, whether we like it or not. They are still on the continent. They're not away from the continent. So they are brothers that have to be accepted when they have sorted out their problem. And their main problem has been France. Their main problem has been a colonial master who's been, exploiting them to the point of impoverishedness, and also to the point where all of their funds are being sent to a French central bank, and then it's now reloaned to them at high rates of their own money based on all their resources. Their lithium is sold at 0.01 cents, and then you are, selling it on the open market at $1,000, their gold and all the other resources. No, it's not a setback. We need them to finish their issue of breaking away from a colonial rule from France, and all others should follow suit. We need to get rid of neo-colonialists and colonial, who have been raping, plundering, and exploiting the continent. And we have to support them. We have to be there for them, and then re-embrace them when they have sorted their problems out. It's not a setback. It's a positive way forward.
All right, saying others will have to follow suit, well, let's see how that will turn out. We just need to go on a breakdown. When we return, we'll look at that conversation. Just stay with us.
Broad Street. Broad Street, situated in Lagos Island, is steeped in Nigerian history. Once the biggest financial hub of the country, it housed the headquarters of major banks, linked to CBN, the stock exchange, and the loads of lender companies. Broad Street is a historically significant street. It has played a central role in the development of Lagos and history, an important commercial and administrative center for the British colonial authorities. It was also home to some of the city's earliest modern buildings. Broad Street was a residential area in the pre-colonial era. With the British came the Methodist Boys High School in 1878 and the Broad Street Prison in 1882, renamed Freedom Park. The General Hospital, which was a British military hospital, was built in 1893, being the first general hospital in Nigeria. The old British Secretariat building, which is now the Federal Ministry of Justice, was built in 1906. Broad Street has seen a full turn into modern commercial office blocks, complexes, skyscrapers, and markets from the outer marina through Akpombo, early into the Adeniji-Adele Road. Broad Street is one of the busiest streets in Nigeria on weekdays, where commercial activities take place day and night. From modern buildings to ancient structures, this street gives one a raw dose of life in Lagos. Broad Street is often referred to as Lagos Financial District. It boasts a mix of architectural styles, reflecting its long history, colonial-era buildings, Victorian and Edwardian architectural features, alongside more modern skyscrapers and structures. Broad Street remains a vital, vibrant part of the Nigerian economy. Broad Street. Souq Enlightenment.
My name is Dr. Ajili Tobi.
My name is Etemere Glover. Naomi, well done, and shout out to Souq News.
Shout out to Souq News. I want to encourage everyone to keep watching Souq News.
Shout out to Souq News, and yes, tune into them.
Keep watching Souq News. They are one in town.
Hey, we're watching Souq News.
Keep watching Souq News.
Keep watching Souq News. Catch them on YouTube and all social media channels.
Hey, my name is Frank Edowo, and I'm imploring you. No, forget that. I am forcing you, coercing you to always stay tuned to Souq News for your news requirements.
Morning and welcome to Early Exchange with Blessing Aiche, Femi Ayodele, Sam Oruwoje, and Idahosa Osamans.
Still a deficit budget, we're still going to borrow as much as up to 7-9 trillion.
We have a 24-hour rescue team always on standby. So the first thing that is done is for the...
As Nigerians, we must realize that government does not thrive based on what one man is doing at the seat of power.
If I had my way, I would say let's go back and bring back Nigerian Broadcasting Corporation.
This is Early Exchange, shaping policy, advancing development.
Yes, our obligation is to advance development, and today we are looking at the African continent, how we can advance development in the African continent, looking at the issue of visa-free policy. We still have our special guest with us. We still have Ambassador Williams Wallace with us. Glad to know you're still there with us, Ambassador.
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't leave Souq News.
That's great. All right. Earlier you were talking about the exit of Mali, Burkina Faso and Niger from ECOWAS, and you were saying that others should follow suit, and I'm wondering, won't that send a wrong signal? And then how is it going to turn out for the continent? Because we're looking at the Africa as a continent now, how to ensure the issue of unity. Maybe you need to shed more light on that so that we can get you properly.
Yeah, we are Pan-Africanists. Staunch Pan-Africanists have to understand and tell people the truth. What is the truth? The truth is that we have to break the chains of colonialism and neocolonialism. The continent cannot move forward if we continue to have that hold, that stranglehold on individual nation states within the continent by colonial powers who rape, plunder, and exploit the country, put us into poverty, and make us, you know, even our own currencies and our own ability to move forward useless. In the continent, we have almost 36 different currencies on the continent, and they are useless. The fiat currency are useless because we do not have a strong currency. To be able to have that, we must unite. To be able to unite, you have to break away from the stranglehold of colonial powers. Why should countries that have been under the French influence be paying to a central bank, enriching that country whilst their people are impoverished? So all others like those three countries should do the same. And that's what I'm saying. They should follow suit, break the yoke of colonialism and neocolonialism, because there are leaders who are just puppets of these regimes to continue serving them. How many of them have been killed because of what they did? Do you know how many attempts they've made on Traore? They killed Sankara, they killed others who wanted to break away from that. But now the youth of the continent is waking up and realize that they're being exploited. Why should they be heading to the Mediterranean, dying when their country is rich in resources. No, they have to break away. We have to be firm about these things. We can't play around with talking around the subject. I and others like us who are Pan-Africanists talk directly. This must be done. Whether it's Arikana, whether it is Pierre Lumumba, whether it's Julius Malema, whether it is Mafongo, all these strong current Pan-Africanists are saying the same thing. And we must continue the same thing. Our news must carry the news of let's change the paradigm. Let's change what was the common item that has kept us back. Colonialism, neocolonialism, exploiting of our resources, impoverishing our people. They want to keep us at that level all the time. But the youth of the continent are now saying no. That is why you see now young soldiers, young leaders are saying no, enough is enough. Because one, they're educated, they're intelligent, they've seen what has happened to their parents, their grandparents, their heroes, and they are saying no. The continent is waking up. The continent has woken up. And now the continent is saying no. It is 75% youths on the continent that are saying no. They are the revolutionary base for this continent for us to move forward. You have to get rid of those who are keeping the continent back, whether they are puppeteers or whether they are colonial, ex-colonial masters. You have to deal with them. And we have to deal with them precisely. This is not something to play around with and to just, talk about it in a very, circular manner. Direct. Get rid of and move the people who are keeping the continent back. We must do it. Otherwise, we're not going anywhere. Everybody, like China and others, had a plan. Where's our plan? Where's the African Development Goals Initiative? Where is it? We need to have, as a continent, yearly goals to move our people forward, whether it's food security, whether it's health, whether it's education. We need to have a common goal together. And that's where the African Union needs to change its leadership. And to change it, they must.
Now, just for the purpose of clarity, how do you propose that African countries break away from the holds of the colonial masters who still have a strong hold on some African countries, and even those who were trying to recolonize Africa in so many other ways?
How do you do it? All right, let's use some perfect examples. Let's use two. When the Americans wanted to break away from Britain, what did they have? They had a revolution, right? When China wanted to establish their 50-year plan on the Mao Zedong, what did they do? They had a revolution, and they put in place in every community a PLA, a People's Liberation Army within the community, to protect the continent, their China, and to protect themselves. We've got to do the same. It has to be a reality that we protect our communities. We set up we call it African People's Liberation Army in the communities, and take care of ourselves, take care of our resources. It's a revolution, whether it's physical, mental, we have to do it. We must revolutionize the continent. It's the only way. We cannot have a few looting the riches, including the puppets who go back to whether it's to Paris or to London or to the US, and they, enjoy the best of the continent because they are sleeping with the colonials, with the exploiters. No, everybody must participate. I say that every community that has resources should be shareholders. If you're coming to our continent, you must bring value added. You bring training, you bring skills, you bring shareholding in whatever business you want to do. I've said it before in one of our interviews. And that's the way forward. You have to revolutionize your thinking. You have to revolutionize the way you do business as an African. You have to ensure that you move the continent forward by revolutionizing everything. The way you did business, the way you participated with the exploiters, the way you looked at your continent. You have to look positively, and you have to say, we can do it. How many people you see on an aircraft coming to Africa that are non-Africans? What are they seeing on the continent and the countries they are going to, or the nation states they are going to? They're seeing the opportunity, and they're seeing how well, and they've learned, you know, all the other newcomers, they've learned how to exploit the continent. They've learned how to exploit the communities. You know, they've learned that we should only be serfs and slaves. No, we are not. And we cannot continue like that. We've got to stop that nonsense. And the way forward is that we must take control of our resources, take control of our destiny. And it has to be that way. No other way. Revolutionize our thinking.
All right, let's look at the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. What influence or progress has been achieved by the continent as regards this area? And then what are the missing links as we speak presently? And what should be the starting point for us to get it right? What impact has this agreement brought to the issue of investment in Africa, and also enforcing the issue of unity when it comes to business relations?
Right. Well, first to begin, the African Free Trade Area, I would say, is a work in progress. It's a pilot. It only started 2 years ago, if I'm correct, you know, with most of the signatories. That was the 1st of January, 2022, or was it 2021? So it's a work in progress, and it's a pilot. You are going to have a lot of areas to work out. And I think starting trade between ourselves, the missing gap is one of the things you talked about, and that is having a common currency contract. That's important, because ease of doing business means to say that you have to be able to transact your business on one common currency. Everybody having different currencies, fiat currencies, most of which are useless in the continent. You can't talk to each other transaction-wise, and you must head to SWIFT or to the United States with some 20 or 22-year-old sitting down and decided whether to give you, you know, trade access and exchange for your currency is a major hole, major gap. So that has to be fixed, which we are working on. But in the meantime, the growth of the ACFTA, one of the things has to be removal of tariffs that we talked about earlier. Then travel, ability to travel and move your goods and services, whether by road or by rail. Of course, you have some good air networks now, so cargo, but that is expensive. So we need to be able to do infrastructure within the road networks, the rail networks, to move things closer together. Of course, shipping is around the continent, and that has its, you know, its problematic areas on the maritime side. But those who are on the same geographical position can also use shipping. So West Africa's shipping capability, that can be used very well. Those on the Southern African axis can do shipping as well. Those on the East African axis can do shipping as well. So maybe you set up, you know, 3 types of shipping lines to take care of that. So ease of transportation is very key. Ease of doing business, and that is the ability to travel and move within the continent, is very important. And then, of course, movement of people, not just goods, but movement of people is important. So that's why the visa-free access, or no visas, as a matter of fact, and one common passport is very important. Of course, you raised the points about security, and as I said, you can ring fence those security areas and deal with it. But there's technology to ensure that we can track both goods and people, which is already in place, because people are doing it normally as, you know, 55 different countries. Everybody has some sort of technology that they apply to be able to track. So maybe we have one common database for the continents, which can be merged and which can help with the tracking aspect. The goods, as I said, can be put into different, what we will call inland receiving points that have the ability to monitor what are those goods so that you ensure that it's not terrorists, bombs and guns, etc. There's technology for that. So those are the little missing gaps. But the ACFTA now is a work in progress, and it's a pilot that will get stronger once we have the right leadership and the right technology to transact business.
All right. Before we wrap up, since we're talking about the continent now, Africa now, let's take a shift and look at what is happening in Sudan. You know, the conflicts in Sudan. Report has it that about 10.7 million people have been displaced as a result of crisis happening in that country. Give us an overview of the underlying factors here and what can be done to manage the crisis in Sudan.
Well, the underlying factors is religious, isn't it? That is one of the major issues that the continent has. The ethno and religious conflicts. We have to get rid of tribalism, and we have to learn to live and tolerate each other's religiosity. You cannot force onto anyone your religious persuasion. That's something that has to stop. If we are to move forward as Africans, we have to say no to religious bigotry. Everybody should be able to follow. What is religion? Religion means a way of life. So if this is your way of life, whether you like Zoroaster, or you like Hinduism, or you like Islam, or you like Christianity, all those religious way of life should be able to live side by side and be acceptable that this is the way I want to live my life. That's fine. But do not try to impose it onto others, and also do not try to now insist that, you know, as a tribe, this tribalism has to stop, that we as a tribe is superior to you and therefore we must dominate you. No, we're all Africans. And that's the first thing we should think about. Africans for Africans. Africa for Africans. Ubuntu, working, living, and taking care of each other. That is a very strong glue to keeping Africa together and getting rid of these conflicts. And don't forget, these conflicts are being encouraged in areas where we have major resources. If you track back where all of the conflicts, and they're being armed, have they not found even the very same United Nations landing aircrafts, taking out resources, dropping off guns? It is there. It is not hidden. It is open. It's on the internet. It's everywhere. So, you know, you find that these people are putting fire into allowing Africans to kill themselves. Whilst they are doing that, they are now moving away with our resources. So Sudan, DRC Congo, you know, wherever you look at what are there. It is resources that others want, and they need to keep us in crisis, so that we do not start to look at how to exploit those resources for ourselves. And we need to think outside the box and say, is it not stupid of us to be killing ourselves whilst our resources are moving? We need to take our resources and exploit them ourselves in partnership with others who want to be working with us as part of our strategic policy for our community, for our nation state, and for the continent. All three are steps that Africans must take.
All right. Regarding this, the IOM has been calling for international concerted efforts to urgently scale up humanitarian response to this displacement. What should be the role of Africa responding to its own?
Well, the role of Africa should be ensuring that we do not have this kind of displacement by going back to the table with the protagonists and sitting down and saying, you know, if we have so many millions of people being displaced, we are having a problem of, one, the very country that they are leaving from, there is an issue. You have now had a gap. You've had a gap now in that very territory of individuals who can contribute to the economics, the strength, and the growth of the country or nation state. So always I say with war, you will always have to come to the table and talk at the end of any war. Why don't we at the beginning sit down and work out what are the problems? What are really the issues here? Is it religious? Is it tribal? Let's solve them. Let's sit down and have the elders of the continent, statesmen like President Obasanjo, others, sit down and broker with the protagonists. Why are you having this problem? Why was this problem created? How can we solve them for the benefit of everyone? Sit down and work out so that we don't have the security issue of displacement, because what is displacement doing? You're moving people into other people's countries, which becomes a problem because they are now going on to the food security of that country, onto the health security of that country, the education issues, so many issues that most other countries cannot bear. And when I say the protagonists also coming from the outside want those displacement, running to say that, oh, there's a humanitarian issue, let's come in now and help, etc. It's nonsense. Why don't you stop it before? They want that to happen because they know it becomes a burden on all these other territories, near to the crisis area. And that, in its sense, is a policy of ensuring that you're forever in crisis, that you're forever having issues to deal with. And therefore, you, as a nation state, cannot progress because you have to accommodate, 21 million displaced people. Go here, go to Ethiopia, go to Kenya, go to Uganda, go to Tanzania. When you have that influx, what are you having? You're having problems, issues. So the continent, by having these issues of displacement all the time, these wars and these crises, cannot move forward. And because they cannot move forward, people are taking advantage of that. They bring guns and they're exploiting the resources and moving it out of the continent. That is common knowledge now. And we have to do something about it. Absolutely. It is us. And the AU has a role to play. And the leadership of the AU at this current point in time is wanting, and it has to change. It is wanting. You can't have leadership of the AU sitting back and ignoring these issues. Even before it happens, preemptive planning, making sure that you have support for those countries that you see the crisis. They're not doing it. It's when it happens, they're now calling for help from outside. Oh, we need humanitarian aid. Oh, we need tents. Oh, we need food. It's all nonsense.
Okay, let me quickly chip in this. Since you are in Kenya, there's been concern about the traveling expenses of President Ruto. I would like you to quickly react to this. Maybe you can give us a first-hand account, since you are in Kenya, your own observation, some of the things you've heard as regards these foreign troops within the space of a few months, about 51 countries, 34 countries, about 51 trips in few months. I would like you to quickly react to that.
Yeah, well, one cannot, as a diplomat, talk about someone else's country and how they do their business. Any president has the right to travel anywhere he wants if that is going to help his country. One doesn't know why a president is traveling. A president travels because, remember, during President Obasanjo's first coming, he made a lot of trips outside Nigeria, whilst he allowed Vice President Atiku to handle the economy and privatization. Why did he do it? Because Nigeria was coming out of, a pariah state, they said, right? And he saw that he needed to go and engage with several countries because Nigeria, he wanted to come back into the Committee of Nations and say that here we are now re-engaging with the rest of the world. Who knows why President Ruto or any other president have made that decision? They are the people who are looking at their strategic policy for developing their particular country. And it is their right. It is their right to make the trips. It has nothing to do with, you are a president. And so the country is there to support, because they supported you, any decision you make is part of your remit. So if you see that you have to travel to 34 countries in 10 days to do a foreign direct investment, run around to the world to bring the investment in, yes, you do it. Even if it's 100 times, you can't fault that, because it is the president who is the CEO. He is the chairman of the country that knows, what do I need to do to enhance development of my country? And it has to do with going and engaging with several countries, sitting down and talking there. To me, I think that's a good thing, because you are talking directly with other decision makers. You're going and engaging with other decision makers. You're not leaving it to a minister. You're not leaving it to a governor to come back and tell you, well, I had this trip. And no, you're eyeballing to eyeballing, other decision makers who are heads of their countries. And it is what they say that you will assert and said, well, I did make a trip to Romania. I spoke to the president, and we signed an MOU, and I'm bringing foreign direct investment to help with the tea or coffee. And our tea makers will be benefiting. He knows. He has at his fingertips what he needs for his country. And as I said, as an example, President Obasanjo did it. And he did it positively. And within a short space of time, in that first 4 years of his presidency, Nigeria, to me, became the darling of investors. People felt encouraged. People felt positive to visit Nigeria. And he gave them, the assurances that they needed, to come to Nigeria. And look at a lot of things that happened. Telecoms, we made a quantum leap. I was there, I knew what happened. So many good things positively happened for Nigeria. Think back about it. So you cannot fault President Ruto for what he does and what he's doing. He's the president, after all. He has to make that decision.
Thank you for providing us your view on President Ruto's many foreign trips. We do hope that the gains of those trips pretty soon will be visible in Kenya. Thank you so much for being a part of Early Exchange today.
Thank you.
All right, this is where we draw the curtain on to this edition of Early Exchange. We thank you for being a part of it. We ask you to do it again with us tomorrow, 8 a.m. West African time. And please remember to stay the rest of the day with Souq News for more programs that will come your way. At 11, there'll be Market Insights. At noon, there'll be Sports. At 4, there will be Souq Pulse, and so many other interesting programs will come your way, as well as news updates. I am Blessing AG. Do your part to ensure the change that you want. Have yourself a great day.
All right, don't forget you can do a catch-up of this conversation on our social media platforms. Like we always say, the conversation continues. You can still make your comment and share your view. Don't forget, Early Exchange returns tomorrow. I am Femi Ayodele. Bye for now.